Hi, Pastor Nathan Decker with your Better Together devotion for today. And today I want to talk about pain. A lot of folks are experiencing tremendous amounts of pain. Some people experience it physically, some people experience it emotionally or socially, but all of us are experiencing to some extent some form of pain right now. We ache and we groan because we can't do what we want to. And we also have this immense amount within our nation of tribalism and us versus them. And a lot of it comes from this place of pain. What I've noticed when I look at history and when I look at even the biblical text is that when people are in pain, when we are hurting deep, deep within our hearts, a lot of times what we will do is we will begin to close the shutters. We will begin to circle the wagons, and we begin having this mentality of us versus them. It's our tribe versus the rest of the tribe, and I've got to look out for me and mine. And that's not exactly what Jesus teaches us. In fact, what Jesus teaches us is, you could say, a higher plane of thinking. To look beyond the concepts of tribes and my group versus your group, and to look into the concepts of community, to look into the concepts of togetherness, to look into diversity. I'm hurting. I will be honest, I am. Our nation has gone through and repeats historically an outrageous amount of looking at African American men and seeing them in a light that paints them as criminals before they've done anything wrong, that views men and women of color with suspicion as they go and shop at different stores. That makes it to where my own opinions, my voice as a white male, is suspect. From the very outset that I begin talking, people begin looking at me differently. That form of tribalism, that form of us versus them, that way of looking at things, it's not the way that God sees us. Now, I also want to say something about how God sees us, because God does not see us as all the same. You know, some of the minimalistic views that I've heard people say are things like, well, we all bleed red and we're all Americans, and that is true. But we're not all the same. And God doesn't view us all the same. God views us all within the light of love and loves every single one of us. But we are all uniquely created and wonderfully diverse, and a rainbow of pigments on skin, of cultures and voice, of accents and ways that we do things, and expectations and sports that we like and things that we do. We're not the same, and it's beautiful. Moving away from tribalism and otherness isn't a move towards colorblindness or generalizations where we go for whatever the lowest common denominator is. Truly moving into community means that we move into a place where it's okay that we disagree. It's okay that you might vote for a Republican presidential candidate and I might vote for something else, or you might desire that you see the Senate be controlled by the Democrats and I don't. It's okay that we have these different views. And it's perfectly okay to have them voiced. What's not okay, and what broke my heart this week, was the stories of where people began looking at other human beings and treating them as less than human. When a police officer takes down someone, they have to use an amount of restrained force. And the key phrase there is restrained. What I have seen at times is that people, persons who are police officers or other law enforcement agencies, I understand they get so amped up because they're trying to take down someone that they go too far. And this is not an excuse. It means that there needs to be more training, more accountability. There needs to be more. There is also this understanding that when I see a police officer put a knee on someone's neck, that's not taking them down. What that is doing is it's taking their humanity away. And anything, any act in which we take someone else's humanity away is not a divine act, is not a righteous act, is not something that I can defend. Likewise, when someone goes into the park, like what happened in Central Park, and a white woman using her privilege, using her place to weaponize the police by saying she's going to call 911 and tell the police that a black man is threatening her, those words are not words of honesty or openness or community. Those words are words that take away someone's humanity and try to weaponize a force that's meant to be a restrained force of peacekeeping. We have so many struggles, every generation in our nation, because of the sin of slavery, because of the sin of racism, because of the sin of looking at people as other and different. Every generation in our world, every generation in our nation, every generation is going to have to deal with trying to move beyond tribal thinking and into a community of diversity, into a place in which we truly belong to one another, even though we're different, especially because we're different. I had a conversation this week with a cashier, and she was kind of humming a song, and I mentioned to her, I was like, you got a good voice. If we were able to have choir practice, I'd invite you to the choir. And she made the statement, she said, well, they probably wouldn't welcome me. I'm a Buddhist. And I was like, I studied Buddhism when I was in graduate school. And what I found was a lot of times that the Buddhists would have no problem welcoming the Christians. It was oftentimes us Christians who had problems welcoming the Buddhist. And I mentioned that to her. I said, that's what I've seen historically, is that we've historically had this us versus them mentality. But I let her know, I was like, but that's not where I am. If you pray a different way, if you worship a different way, if you are a different way, it's not me or mine to say that your tribe is not the right. Instead, what is my job? What is my responsibility? What is my duty as a disciple of Jesus Christ? Is to be like Christ. Christ who opened his arms as he walked by the brothels to say prostitutes were welcome to this movement. Christ who went by the tax collector booths, who went by the collaborators with an enemy government and said, hey, I love you still. Christ who even welcomed the Pharisees as he went to Nicodemus's house and said, hey, I'd like to teach you something. I'd like to share something with you. This light, this new birth, I want to let you know about it. My duty as a disciple of Jesus Christ has nothing to do with drawing boxes or lines or division. My duty as a disciple of Jesus Christ, my job, my calling as a pastor, my way is to live as Christ lived and to go in a direction that leads us to being better together, that goes in a direction that leads us to being community with one another. So you disagree with me about even that. And you say, no, that's not right. You're being too tolerant and too tolerant, and everything's just going to go. That's okay. Because I want you to know something. I love you still. And I believe and would fight for your right to disagree with me. Because that's the right thing to do. We all have things that irritate us. We all have things that are our pet peeves, our own way of being. Let's make sure that we're not expressing the pain of difference, or that we're not vocally putting out on social media that we hit our thumb with a hammer. When I was a kid, I remember my dad hit his thumb with a hammer one time, and for the rest of the day, my sister and I, we avoided him. Because the pain he was experiencing within his thumb was something he was expressing to his offspring, to his children. I feel like sometimes that's what's going on when I look at social media. That really what's happening is we catch a flash of an opportunity to express the pain within. There's a lot of injustice in the world. We need to strike out against that injustice. We need to stand up together. But we also need to recognize the pain in our own lives. You know, maybe what's really being expressed there is something really deep that hasn't been unpacked yet. My friends, God is with us through this. Let us pray together. Let us join together. Let us be together during this time. You know, we're in the midst of a crisis on the whole world. You'd think that the fact that people are dying would bring us together. God asks us to be better together. Won't you be better with me? Because I can be better with you. Amen.